So now you know. Okay, welcome back, everybody. This is Conversation with Friends number 34. Wow, pretty soon these conversations are going to be as old as I am. Um, I have, this is a repeat guest. I have Kari with me, Kari Driskell. She will tell you exactly what she does for a living, but it's wrapped around grief. We have things in common other than we are stunningly beautiful. Let's all admit that. Stunningly beautiful. We have the best sense of humor in the universe, her and I combined. And also, we are widows. So we have that. But today, our subject is about today's world and grief and social media. So we're going to get into that a little bit. First, Kari, introduce yourself to the good peoples.
Yeah. Okay. My name is Kari Driskell. I am a grief and widow coach. I am an advanced grief recovery methods specialist with the Grief Recovery Institute. And then I'm also a certified life coach for widows. And so I have an office, but most of my clients are online and virtual. But I sit around and talk about sad shit all day.
Okay, before we get into the subject matter, how do you shake that off?
I will tell you because I've worked from home for a long time, and I have a physical office here, and that helps a lot. So I feel like I leave that here in this space, and then I can go home. But I do have some rituals that I do in between all of my clients just to kind of help clear my aura, kind of, and be able to show up for all of my clients and hold
Awesome.
space.
Right, because yeah, so you must have to do something. I mean, I don't do that kind of coaching, but you still have to do something where you kind of shake it off in between clients so you're not
Yeah.
carrying it into the other person's space.
Yeah.
Um, cool. All right. So what we're talking about today is the social etiquette, and I don't think there's any guidelines. Has anybody produced any guidelines for this yet? But for those of us who have gone through some profound grief, um, we can have PTSD almost around a grief response of, at least I do. Let me just speak for myself, I guess. When somebody pops up on social media and do their big tribute post about someone who just, honestly, I've seen it happen within minutes of somebody dying, um, and put out all this information, but it's not coming from the family yet.
Mm.
Number one, which I think is boundaries, but also like a family puts it out differently too than somebody who is in their grief and putting it out on social media. Sometimes it puts me in a place where I'm right back in my own grief again, right? And that that early earth shattering,
It
mind altering.
re-traumatizes you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and the thing is, when you're experiencing grief and you're actively grieving in the deep dark places of it, everything re-traumatizes you, and so I mean that's going to be a normal thing that we have to cope with, deal with, in general. But there are some guidelines that should be written down that should be known. I mean, you've got social media etiquette number one. You've got the what is it called, the ring of grief theory that psychologist Susan Silk came out with, which is that circle of comforting in and dump the, oh, I missed this person out. The family, the immediate person connected should be the one to announce the loss
Right.
unless that person was asked. I mean, there's so many different things that we could talk about and spin off with this topic. So I think it's so important that you are bringing this to light, Dawn. So
Right, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who, they have no idea. Number one, right? They're just in their own place when they post those things.
Mhm.
And unless we bring it up, how would they know that maybe it's not such a good thing they're doing and
Right,
they need to be a little bit more mindful about it, right?
right.
Like I can would say a handful of times every year it happens to me
Mm.
that it
And
comes to
how long has it been since your husband passed on? Remind me.
um 7 years.
Yeah.
And I
It'll be 5 in February for us.
right.
Yeah.
So this is and it's the anniversary is coming up in September. It's my birthday, so the
Happy birthday.
no, the death day is also my birthday in
Oh, well, fuck.
September. Yeah.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
so
So that
so
re-traumatizes everything too. Like it can't
right,
just be your day. It can't just be your day.
correct. And so that's September 18th. I cannot tell you I it's been very rare that I don't look at a digital
Mhm.
clock, whether it's my phone or at the computer or the microwave, where I don't look up and it's 9:18. Twice a day
6:12.
yeah,
Yeah.
9:18. 9:18 every day, and it's like,
Mm.
and at first it was like it was crushing, but now it's just like, hey, how are you? you know
Oh, yeah.
like
Like you become familiar with it, almost like an old friend. Like where
right,
like
right,
that's what time does. Time only creates like you to be able to get familiar with your trauma, so to speak.
right, right. That's the other thing, it doesn't go away. And I feel very strongly, like when people ask about your life experiences or whatever, yes, I'm married, but I'm still a widow.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like, and I feel like some people think like, oh, isn't that great? Now you have a good life again. Oh, but I'm
Yeah.
still a widow. Like that
Yeah.
doesn't get
You still have
erased.
that experience. The experience is not still there. That love, that life, that loss is still a part of you, even though you're moving forward.
Right, right. So what is the guiding etiquette for social media around this?
Around grief in general, and social media. First of all, I would say if someone is announcing a death, it needs to be the person closest involved. And the bad part is everyone feels closest involved.
Right? That
So
ownership, that fierce ownership.
yeah. Well, and I remember, my husband died. I had quite a following online. Eric's with his work, he was a high school football coach, and so it was very prominent in the area, the community, the coaching community. And I had an online business, and so I had this online world. And I remember people sharing their posts and being thankful to hear stories, um, but also sometimes being like, yeah, you miss my husband so much. You saw him twice a year at football conferences, or you saw him for 5 minutes in passing period um, during the day. When you walked past his classroom or something, like, you think you miss my husband. How the fuck do you think I feel? And so it's almost kind of like you feel hijacked too,
Right. Yeah.
like people are hijacking your grief, and they're like, it's not a competition, but if it was, I win, I'm the wife,
Correct.
like
Correct. Yeah. I feel the worst.
I get the win, I'm winning here. Which sucks, like.
Yeah.
But Eric had a massive brain aneurysm with irreversible and instant brain damage. He was among football coaches at the time of it, and so they leaped into action and immediately gave CPR, and that saved his body. um, Mentally, he would never, cognitively, he would never recover. But he was in the ICU on life support for 3 days until we technically, um, did the do not resuscitate, the DNR. And we essentially made the decision to pull the plug. But somebody on Twitter, and that's the other thing. Gosh, oh my gosh, we could go into this. So a news reporter posted on Twitter that Eric had died, had passed away, and technically he's still on life support. We knew that he wasn't going to recover, but it wasn't his place. And he since apologized to us, to the school district. But it made an impact. My family was like, "You haven't been on Facebook anytime or social media, have you?" And I was like, no, like my husband's dying. I'm not on social media right now, and they're like, okay, good. And so it was handled before I even saw it, but I know that it existed. Um, but speaking of that, also, when my husband collapsed, he was at a restaurant, and some of the waiting staff were high school kids, and
Oh,
my husband is known, and so it went out on tweets, and so people knew, and so we even had the experience of, I wasn't calling anyone. I called Eric's brother, and then he called his brother and dad, and we went up, and that was like it. And then I called my best friend, who is local, and so I knew she'd call my other best friend, and we'd all be together. But I didn't call my mom, I didn't call my sister. Like, I didn't want them to know anything until we knew something. I didn't want the extra chaos.
right.
What I didn't know is it had already gone out on Twitter. And so my sister found out because somebody had contacted her and said, "How's your brother-in-law doing?" And she's like, "What are you talking about?" And then she called my mom, and my mom had no idea. And I just didn't want the extra chaos at the hospital. And when I walked into the emergency room, I remember they led me to a room, um, and it, like, I recognized familiar faces. Like, there was some coaching staff that were there at the meeting. My brother-in-laws were there. My best friend met me up there. Um, and I remember thinking, God, this emergency room is so fucking busy. There's so many people. But it was like they didn't have faces. I just saw
Yeah.
figures.
Yeah.
What I didn't know is I was walking through a wave of parents and coaches who had seen the whatever, found out, and raced up to the emergency room just to be there to support, to pray, whatever it was. And I didn't know that they were there. I didn't know that that's who they were, that they were there for us. But meanwhile, my family didn't know, just because I didn't want the extra chaos in those moments of trauma until we knew more. Um, even so I left my girls at home, and my sister-in-law came over. So my brother-in-law came over, his wife went over to my house because I left the girls. And they were 8 and 11 at the time. And they're 8 and 11, but they're on Instagram and they've got friends with older siblings. And what I did not know also was that my sister-in-law had taken their iPods, because that's what they had at the time. So just disconnected them to the world because things were already out. And I didn't even know that this was happening until later, you know? But reflecting out, like, I don't know if I would have had it any different. I don't know. I mean, there's nothing I can do about it now.
Right.
I still think that I made the same decision. Like, I remember my mom, love you, mom, but I remember my mom being really mad that I hadn't called her. And and I was like, I'm not going to apologize for things that I did or did not do when my husband was dying.
Right. Like there's only so much sensory overload a person can take.
Right.
And whether or not it's true, I know they have the best intentions, but as a woman, it's almost like, right, you're going to feel some kind of responsibility to care for them as well.
Yeah.
If
Yeah,
they're,
you do. Oh my
that's what
gosh.
you,
Yeah.
right. Right.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And like, how much is there to go around?
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, no, I
Well, and
totally
we
get
hear
your,
that. Like, how many widows tell us that, oh my gosh, at the hospital, I feel like I'm caring for other people, or at the funerals,
the
like,
funeral.
I'm
Absolutely.
consoling other people,
Yeah.
and it's my husband who died.
Right.
But that does naturally happen. I mean, it does.
Right. Right. It's such an odd thing because I remember thinking, oh, I'm the hostess. I am the hostess of death. Right?
Right.
Like
And that's fucked up.
it is. It totally is. But these are the things that are rattling around in your mind while you're doing what you need to do. Like, yes, I'm the
Yeah.
hostess of death. This is lovely. How are
Yeah.
you? Have you had something to eat?
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy. Um, and everything that you're feeling is normal, and then and natural, and even no matter how fucked up it is. So now I'm at home, right? So I'm at home, I'm sad, I am in the deepest, darkest of overwhelming despair, not wanting to do anything except keep my mind occupied and away from re-traumatizing myself. And everything in the home re-traumatizes me. The couch, his favorite spot. There's his iPad over there. There's his toothbrush. He's going to walk down the hall. The sump pump goes off, but I think it's the garage door. Dad's home. Fuck,
Yeah.
dad's not home. Making dinner, pulling out 4 plates. Shit, put 1 back. Everything re traumatizes you. I'm going to go to Facebook. I'm going to distract myself on Facebook. Oh, fuck. Nope.
Yeah, everybody's talking about it.
Miss you, coach. Miss you, coach. And you're thankful for it. Like,
Yes.
it's this fine line, but that's the thing about grief is we're thankful for it and we hate it all at the same time. Intense, emotional, conflicting emotions is what it is. And it's natural and it's normal. And that is grief. That is actively grieving. It is a war in your heart. And so everything re traumatizes you. So you go on Facebook, the things that I loved on Facebook, whether it be a personal story or a public one, would be stories about my husband. And because the girls were 8 or 11, I screenshotted everything. So I have a file. And I think one day I'm going to make like a photo album or something like on Shutterfly or something that they can have of stories of their dad. I mean, they've already forgotten so much about him,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
Like all they have are these stories. And there's
Mhm.
so much that I didn't even know because, Eric had work and then he came home and we were a different life for him, his home
Right.
life.
Right.
And that was lovely. But what I did find super annoying, I feel like I'm just
No, it's good.
what I found super annoying, and it's not that they meant to. Like it comes from a good place. Everyone has their own grief,
Right.
so they need to share their own grief. Period. But like, I was so angry that everybody was missing my husband, and like I said earlier, it was like, hey, it's not a competition, but if it was, like, I win. I know you're missing my husband. So, okay, I know you dated my husband in high school, but I still win. He chose me. Like, we have the kids together,
Oh my
you
God.
know?
Can I tell you a story? So this happened a couple years ago. I get an email through my residential cleaning service business website and I ignore it. But it's from somebody he dated when he was 19 in Spain, right? And she's reaching out because she is so overwhelmed and she needs closure, etc. And so that email
I'm so
came.
sorry. That's so, like,
Bizarre, right? Yeah. I ignored it. And then she pops into a direct message on Facebook. And I was like, okay, now I have to deal with you. Like, and I was not gracious at all
no,
because
we're not.
I could not imagine where you thought you were entitled to ask his widow
Mhm.
for closure
Yeah.
about how and what happened. And man, I just spit it all out. And I was like, I need not ever hear from you again. Please let this be your last warning, because if you thought this was harsh, this was me holding back kind of
Yeah.
thing. I was like, who are you? You're not
This is
19.
me. This is me holding back, bitch.
Basically. And I ran it by my now husband and I ran it by my son, and they were both like, no, that's perfect. Let her
Yeah.
fly, mom. But I was like, you're not 19 now, right? Because he was 42 when he died.
Yeah.
So I was like, how have you not matured to a place where you not only once reached out, but when it was ignored, it never occurred to you to not, that like there was
Yeah.
something wrong with what you were doing.
Yeah.
Like, it is not my
Yeah.
job. It is not my place. And I'm not going to take it on. Thank you very much. Go have a nice fucking life.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't thinking about you at the time either.
No.
So,
No. I remember I got my first and only tattoo. Okay. I remember embracing the pain because it felt so good to hurt somewhere else besides my
oh my
heart at the
gosh.
time. Yeah. So Eric wasn't big into tattoos. He was like, man, it's gonna be on your body forever. You know what I mean? And so we weren't tattoo people. It's fine. But I desperately needed this. And so it's his handwriting, just right here, and it's for me. And so I post about it, right? And everyone's like, that's awesome. That's beautiful. I think that's great. And I'm like, Eric would probably say, really, Carrie, are you really going to do this? And an ex girlfriend pops, because most of my things are public because he's so well known in the area and I have an online following. People are nosy. They want to know how I'm doing. They want to, so it's just easier to just put it out, blast it out in the world. And so someone commented, an old girlfriend of his said, I think Eric would love it. And I'm thinking, I don't really give a flying fuck what you think.
But
My
how
husband would
old
think.
was he, right? How old was he when he was with her?
Oh, they broke up in college at some point.
But college,
Yeah,
right? So,
they were together from high school into some college, so maybe four or
so
five
the
years.
Eric she was really close with
Yeah,
was a whole
yeah,
different person.
yeah. And she she made a post and it was like, I'm so glad that you could live your dream and be the head coach at the high school or whatever. And I'm reading it and I'm thinking he didn't know that he wanted to be a high school coach then. Like he didn't know until after you, when you weren't with him. Like, and he didn't know he wanted to be the head coach until he and I discussed it. And we decided as a family we were going to take this route. And what was also annoying is this ring of grief, this grief theory that came out in like 2013, right? So this is something that I found since I do what I do now. And that is Eric, me and the girls are like the immediate inside the circle.
You're
And then
the
you have,
epicenter.
yeah, we're at the center of the circle. And then like parents and siblings are the next line. And then like true friends, colleagues, and it just, the circle branches out. She is way out
Yeah.
here.
She's rippling at the shore.
And she's like, I'm so thankful I could be a chapter in your life. That's it. You were a chapter. You were a paragraph of his life. And I'm at the center of the circle, and you're not even saying, I'm thinking of, Eric's wife and her kid.
Right.
I can't imagine what they're going through. She's like, oh no, we're going to be Facebook friends. Like, and I'm like, no, the fuck, we're not.
Yeah. No, thank you. No, thank you. Nope. We
Like,
really know.
and it's just, it hurts because you're actively grieving when all of this stuff is happening, which means you've got this war in your heart, which means you are missing your, what you thought was your life partner, you were going to grow old with, you were going to die next to each other like in the Notebook together, and now that has been entirely ripped from you, but you're so thankful that you had it. But damn him for dying. So you're at this war within yourself, and then you almost create wars with other people
Oh, yes,
because
ma'am.
you're hurting so
Yes,
much.
ma'am.
And hurt people hurt people. And so when you are hurting so much and then they're not following the rules, the unwritten rules of social media etiquette, how dare they? People, and the other thing, people don't know. People don't know what they're doing. They're thinking, I'm sharing the grief with you, Carrie. No, you're not. You're hijacking it. You're stealing my thunder if there's ever such a thing when it comes to grief.
Right.
Which sounds so stupid, but it is. He was my husband. I get to announce when he's dead. I get to tell you what I need. One of my friends in high school, her husband recently passed, and she was sharing details about the funeral. What I loved what she said in it was something that she needed. She said, hugs are welcome. Please don't say anything. There are no words that can make anything better.
I
And I
love that.
love
I love that
that's
she
what she
knew
knew.
that and she put it out there because
Yeah,
it means so much. Because I don't, I lost track of how many times I said there
yeah,
is nothing to say,
yeah,
like, and then lean in,
yeah.
because people, they don't know what to say, and that's okay. That is
Yeah, there's nothing they can say.
correct.
So
Yeah.
sometimes just your presence in being, like, and so back to that circle, I keep bringing up because I think it's so imperative for people to think about. The idea is that we comfort people inside the circle that's further inside. I needed to be comforted. I needed to be loved. I needed to be held. I needed to be heard. No matter what fucked up thing I'm making sense of in my head, I just need those thoughts and feelings to be validated, no matter how crazy they seem. If you need to express grief about my dead husband, don't do it to me.
Right.
Do it to someone else outside your circle. And so that's the ring of grief theory that was introduced in 2013. But people are just now starting to talk about it. And so we comfort in and we dump our grief out. So, like when my friend's husband died, you know, and she's posting about it, or I hear about it, I'm texting her and I'm just like, I love you. I'm here for you. I can't imagine what you're going through because her relationship is different than my relationship with my husband. It's not gonna be the same shit, even though it's the same idea. We both lost husbands. I don't know what she's going through. And so I'm comforting in. I'm not saying, I miss your husband so much. I can't believe this. I'm in total shock. Don't turn it on you. It is not about you. It is about her inside the circle.
Right. Right. And I think that's a really important distinction for people to understand because I had this estranged best friend and we had not spoken words for 10 years at least. And I got a voicemail and she's crying and saying how, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening, blah, 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 blah. Thankfully, it was a couple weeks after, and I had my best friend in the world who's seen me with three husbands now, right, was with me that weekend. And I listened to it and I started laughing. She's like, what? And so I played it again and I played it through speaker. I was like, I'm laughing not because it's funny, I'm laughing because she has no idea. She has absolutely no idea. I said, even at this juncture, she is making it about her.
Yeah.
Like it's this whole crying hysterically thing is about her. It's not about me. She's not saying one thing to me.
Yeah.
Not one thing.
Yeah.
Delete. No, I
Yeah.
have no desire to reach back out to you. That was for what?
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't
and
need.
they think, they're thinking I'm sharing the grief that I need to grieve too. Dawn, come on now. I need to grieve too. I need to grieve too, Carrie. Well, that's fine, just not to me. Like
Right. Like,
we're
yeah.
not the people that you grieve about our person to.
Right.
But
Yeah.
we shared them. He was in our family. Nope, doesn't count.
Yeah. So now, how would you suggest we go about telling our personal stories about other people? And by the way, I never do that. And maybe it's because, like, I don't.
I can't tell if you're being sarcastic or not.
I'm not. I'm not being sarcastic because I don't know how to go about it. And I would never want somebody sitting there going,
She's talking
oh,
about me.
right? Like, or, like that's not her story to tell, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe it's having been in that place. I don't. I'll reach out to people, other places, but never publicly. And I don't publicly really talk about it.
About
Um,
your grief journey.
no, not my grief journey, but like when somebody else passes,
Yeah.
like I'm
Yeah.
really reticent about that.
If my friend that I was just telling you about, her mother reached out to me privately and just was like, before this goes public, I know that you need to know. So and this old classmate of mine, we're not friends. We don't talk, but a small town, small school, like went, I've known these people my entire life. And so she knows that I'm a widow. She heard her daughter talking about me and was like, I need you to know. She would want you to know this. And so I asked for her phone number and I texted her. I said, hey, this is Kari Driskell. I am so, so terribly sorry. And doing it privately is where you do it. I would never go to her Facebook page and be like, I heard this news about you and blasting off. That's like, look at me. I'm the first one who knows. I'm the first
Right.
one who gets to tell you, you know. So you do it privately. Now, I waited until after she posted or something got posted, you know, and then I commented
Right.
on the thread. And don't expect people
To
to
reply.
reply. I mean, there is so much shit going on, like externally, internally, like they will get to it when they get to it. And they may
Right.
not. They may read it and not click the like hey, I saw it,
Right. It
you
may
know.
be like when they encounter you in person 3 years down the road, like, oh, and then
Yeah.
maybe it comes up. But
Yeah.
it's not, yeah, don't put expectations on what you expect from somebody who is going through one of the toughest times
Yeah.
of their lives.
And
And
don't expect them to call you. Like if they need something, they are not calling you, I promise. I didn't
right.
call a single fucking person.
No, no.
Nothing mattered. Nothing mattered. I mean, none of this shit matters. None of
Right.
my nothing mattered. Somebody was concerned about they were returning something to my house while I was up at the hospital, and they were like, "Hey, did you know that your fridge is leaking?" And like, where you get water out, it dripped. I was like, "Yeah, just throw a towel down, it's fine." And he was like, "Man, it's gonna ruin your hardwood floor." And I was like, "I really don't care. Like,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
does not matter."
Yeah.
And I got home, and then we had a new fridge, which I was thank you, but and that's lovely. And we still have that fridge. Thank you for the fridge. But at the time, I was like, nothing matters. So another thing that they can do is continuing to reach out privately and say, "I'm thinking of you. How are you doing in this moment?" Not how are you doing? You don't want to ask a widow, "How are you doing?" How do you bloody think I'm doing? My
Yeah.
husband said,
Right.
I'm doing shit.
Yeah. Yep. Thinking about showering next month.
Yeah. Yeah, but how are you doing in this moment is always a good question because it is moment to moment.
Right. Yeah. It sure is. And when you are re-traumatized in that grief, it becomes that all over again,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And somehow worse. The re-traumatizing grief to me anyway feels somehow worse because you have a frame of reference for it now, right? Like when you're going through the grief in it, when it's happening, you
Mhm.
don't really have any reference for it, right? You have no idea of what's coming next. It just
Yeah.
comes, right? And it's
Yeah.
all out of control. But somehow when it's re traumatizing, it's like, wait, I know how this cycle goes. You know what I mean? Like, I
And even
know.
if you don't like cognitively realize something's coming, sometimes your body knows
Correct.
and you will feel symptoms of what is going on with me right now. Like I'm acting crazy or I'm doing some crazy things, like I'm feeling weird or sleeping more. And then you're like, "Oh, our anniversary is in 2 days."
Right. Right. And I just got a knot in the middle of my shoulder blades in my back just talking about it.
Yeah.
Right? Like somebody, it feels like somebody punched me between my shoulder
Yeah.
blades.
Yeah.
So, yes. And it's this like the August and September for me are not the greatest months. Um, because our wedding anniversary is in August, and then we segue right into September. But you're also faced with people like, how do you handle it when you're the grief comes back at you? It's not something we choose, by the way. We
Yeah.
don't want to feel this bad. Like, I never wake up and go, you know what, I'm going to have a really shit day and think about it way too much and be feel really bad for myself. That sounds like a good idea. That is not on my agenda. It's not something I choose. When people think you should be over it.
Yeah. And you have a moment of grief. How do you
Yeah.
deal?
Yeah.
Get in the moment. Get in that moment. Do not let the moment pass you by because otherwise you just sweep it underneath the rug and then it's more undealt with shit that piles up. So deal with it in that moment. Go there. Feel it. Let it course over you, over your body, over your heart, into your head. Cry. Whatever it is that you feel like you need to do. If you need to go for a jog, do that. I'm not the jogging type, but some people are.
Yeah, I'm not the jogging type either, but
If
I
you
will
need to
walk
eat a
for
bowl of
days.
queso, I mean,
Mm,
whatever, you know. get in that moment and let the moment pass you so that you can feel something else later.
And please remember that I don't, you don't get over it. Grief is not something that ends. It changes. It becomes a more tameable animal sometimes, most of the time. I'll clarify, most of the time. But when we're re-traumatized, it's the same creature. Just we have a form of reference for it. And
Yeah.
don't let people make you feel like bad for having your grief.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm not actively grieving anymore. I have moments of grief,
right,
but what they really are moments of sadness, moments of missing him, and sometimes they're heavier than other moments. Um, Actively grieving, though, I couldn't be here talking to you when I
right,
was actively grieving. I mean, you are just numb to the world. Nothing matters. You might not want to get out of bed. You can't think clearly. Like I can't function when I was actively grieving, and a lot of that has to be dealt with heart work in order to move forward. There's no moving on because
right,
you're never going to be the same person that you are. You move forward because you are the culmination of all of the things that have happened to you, all the good, all the bad, and all of the fucking ugly. And
right,
you are the person that you are because of the love and the life and the loss that you've endured. And because of that loss, you're given a gift of perspective. And that gift allows you to live more richly and more intentionally than ever before. But if you're actively grieving, you might not even be able to see that far and have that vision of, I'm going to be okay, I'm going to get through it, and I'm going to be better than I was before. You won't want it to be.
right, right. Even with my dog passing, with Remy passing, I remember it was like a week after, and my husband was in a different place than I was. And I finally said, I get it. I know you want me to be somebody I can't be right now. And I
Yeah.
said, also, I need you to know that I'm not ready to give up the pain yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not ready to let go of the pain yet.
And only you can decide when you're ready.
Right.
Like there's no timeline. It is individual as it is that you love, and that time with your dog, the dog that died, that was a connection to your husband, I'm assuming too.
Oh, yeah. They were the reason I got out of bed every day afterwards
Yeah.
because I had to.
Yeah. So that's another tie to your
Correct.
husband that you're letting go.
Right. And just so you can fully understand what I'm saying about I'm not ready to give up the pain yet. If you haven't been there, that's all you have left at that time,
Yeah.
right? So if that can give you some perspective of how to handle a person who's deeply grieving, I don't know what else can, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Good job, Dawn. I wasn't going to cry today.
You're doing great. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Oh, um,
You know,
so
your heart, your when you have a when you're heartbroken, or if you have a broken ankle, the body will send signals to your brain that it's in pain, that you're hurting, and it will manifest physically, the knot in your back, in your shoulder, in between your shoulders. So your body just recognizes that you have a stressor, and it can't tell if it's because you have a broken heart or you broke your legs.
right,
It will manifest physically. Your immune system is shot, which is scary, especially during a world pandemic.
right,
I think about
yeah,
that too. Like Eric died in 2017, and COVID's 2019, 2020, and I think, how many times was I at the doctor that first year after Eric died because my immune system was, you know,
right,
I can't imagine people who were enduring grief during a world pandemic,
right.
like
I
that level of
no,
grief.
seriously, because like I had to tell myself to stop thinking about it. especially in the early days where everything was, the numbers were so high and the way people were dying and people couldn't be with them, the way they brought in, like in the city, they brought in the refrigerator trucks to
Ugh,
handle the bodies, all of that. Talk about re-traumatizing grief. I was grieving exponentially for these people. Like, I can't imagine if I couldn't have been there, if this was me having to deal with grief through this. How are they doing it?
yeah,
How, what systems are in place? What do we have to do going forward to help these people? And I don't know about you, but I thought about young kids going through the pandemic, right? They don't
yeah,
know any better because this is all their reality is. But you can't tell me that we are not going to be dealing with the ripple effects of what they've grown through.
yeah. Grown through,
Right.
grown through. Yeah, it is their normal.
But that
Yeah,
doesn't
and
mean they're okay just
I
because it's
know.
their normal, right? Because there are children who grow through war, active war,
Right, and
right?
that's not normal.
And that's not normal and that's
But they don't know it is.
traumatic.
Yeah,
Right. But there
absolutely.
is trauma. They don't know that they're living through trauma.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what uh, please tell me you think this way too sometimes, or is it just my crazy head? Because I'm like, well, what are we doing? What's been put into place? What do we need to put in place to deal with that later on?
Yeah. No, I think that's a valid thought. I think that, I mean, we're definitely spinning off from social media and
Yeah,
but
we sure
re-traumatize.
are.
This is for our third session together.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, I think giving grace, showing grace to ourselves, showing grace to our kids, um, sometimes not giving a shit about grades. Like everyone's so. I've and the thing is, I used to be a public school teacher. My husband was a public school teacher. My oldest child especially has gifts that are not graded in the public school system. So I really don't care. Just pass, kiddo, because you're going to be a success in life, whatever you choose to do, because you have incredible strengths that just aren't graded.
Right.
And so since their dad died, so in the last almost 4.5 years, I've kind of like, I don't really give a shit about your grades, kids. Like, just pass so you get to the next class, like it's okay. We're going to be okay. I am more concerned about your emotional health and your well-being. So if we have a family event or they have a 5-page paper, I'll email the teacher. I have no problem. Hey, we have this family event and life is too fucking short and we're going to go see my 89-year-old grandma and spend some time with our family, and I told my kid not to worry about it. Oh, well, it's going to be 5% off or whatever it is. And, okay, she'll be fine.
Yeah. I
She'll be
love
fine if
that.
she fails your class. She'll be fine. I called this year and I said, I think specifically with my youngest, I said she's not taking the state assessment this year. I was like, she's clinically depressed and anxious. She was suicidal in December. I was like, she, I don't care. She's alive and well. Fuck your state assessments.
Right? Yeah. Like, yeah, what it in the big scheme of things, how is
Yeah,
this helpful?
yeah.
Um, yeah, I love that you are so emotionally intelligent to allow that for them. I mean, I think that's beautiful. I
Thank
think,
you.
yeah, no, seriously, because I see kids who are not dealing with that level of grief in their lives and what it does to them to be pushed into
Yeah,
all the boxes and testing and where are you going? What are you going to do with your life? I don't, I'm going to be 60. We were not asked that at 14.
no. And at 18, when I thought I knew, it changed at 20. And at
Correct.
20, it changed at 28. And at
Yeah.
28, it changed again. And guess what? It changed again when my husband died.
Right.
What you have to be able to do is shift in life and be able to
Right.
pivot and
If
be
the
able to be
pandemic
like,
hadn't
it's
taught us
okay.
that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. You have to learn how to adapt. Those aren't necessarily things that they teach in school.
No, they don't teach that
They
in
don't test
school.
them. They don't
No.
test those abilities in schools. So give your kids some grace.
Right.
Give them a break. You know, let them play on their stupid little games with their headsets because it allows them to connect with their friends. And that's what they need right now.
Right. And it allows them to disconnect with other things in their head,
Yeah.
which is equally as important. So,
Yes, it
if
is.
to wrap this up, let's talk about some common sense guidelines that people might want to think about around social media and
Okay.
grief that is not theirs.
Okay. All right. One, let the person in the middle of the circle that it most affects be the one to share. Don't you agree?
Yes, absolutely, full stop. Let them
Um,
lead.
yeah. Definitely contact family before something goes public for the rest of the world. If you know that it hasn't gone public already. Um, Comfort in, dump your own grief outside the circle.
Yeah,
Um, Continue to check in with people privately and share stories. And always think about the most affected, the person or people who are most affected. It's not about you.
right. So I think we really need to key in on reach out privately, because here's the thing that happens when you reach out publicly on Facebook. If there's anything I can do, you put the person into a position where they feel like now they have to respond so they don't look like an asshole and then are ignoring you. Do you really want that extra
Yeah.
bit of shit pushed on somebody whose life is devastated in this period of time? I'm pretty sure you don't,
Mhm.
right? And it's okay if you've never thought about it that way, but moving forward, let's think about it a little bit. Like,
I would also say don't post stupid things. Like like just post a heart emoji. Post I love you. I am so sorry that you're going through this. Don't say he's in a better place.
yeah,
Don't say there's a purpose for everything. You know what?
yeah,
I don't.
everything happens for a
Yeah,
reason,
everything
man.
happens for a reason. No, 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 no,
That made me want to
no.
stab people.
Oh, gouge them with their with a spoon in their eyes. Like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All those things, yeah, they're not necessarily the best thing to say. And
They
when,
come from a good place. They're just not
right,
helpful.
no, they're not helpful. And it's perfectly okay not to know what to say. In
There are
fact,
no words, and say
yeah,
that. I'm sorry, there are no words.
and that is 100% okay to say. Like you're not failing anybody.
Yeah.
Because equally, the person that you're speaking those words to, they don't have any words either.
Yeah. There is nothing you can say or do that will take the pain away from right now. I remember
Absolutely.
somebody saying, I wish I could take some of your pain away. And I felt that. You know what I mean? Like, I wish I could give some of it away. And later you will with dark humor and and awkward shit that we do in grief.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Okay, Carrie, this was another really wonderful
good.
conversation. I think the two of us having these conversations are a gift. And I mean that not in an egotistical way. I just mean that we are both so unpolitically correct. you know,
Unfiltered, what'd you say?
Yes, unfiltered, but grounded in a very realistic way
Yeah.
of hanging our own asses out to dry. And I think that it can be a very lovely learning experience for people listening to us.
You're
So,
welcome. You're
yeah,
welcome, people. You are
yeah,
welcome.
we are the gift that keeps on giving. We are.
No, thank you for having me, Dawn. I really, really appreciate that you asked me on this topic, especially.
Yes, yes. I just think it's not talked about at all, really, except in the heat of the moment. Um, I don't know that people. Anyhow, thank you, ma'am.
You are so welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, people, for joining us. Subscribe to all the things. If
All the things.
you've lost the links to all of Kari's stuff that were right here with this recorded post, hit me up on the down low and I will put you in touch. You think you know somebody who needs the work that Kari does. If you can't find her directly, reach out to me and I will put you in touch. Meanwhile, have a good day. Don't step on other people's grief that doesn't belong to you. I'm going to have a t-shirt
Well
made.
said.
Get your feet out of my grief. Just step off my grief, man.
Back the fuck up.
The hell out of my grief. Have a really good day, though. Bye-bye, folks.